Or you deliver a robotic arm for the other side.
It wipes away the unskilled helper and replaces it.
Exactly. I mean, we need to do that now.
Cameron wants one of those arms in his shop now.
Yeah, definitely.
When Huber comes, so we can just wipe him off.
Whoops. Right out the door.
Work for Europe. Let's go.
Welcome, guys. We got 2 guests this week. You want to introduce them, Albert?
We have Ben Camone on the show again. And Oliver Tobin, who does a lot of machines for bladesmithing and knife making and all kinds of stuff. So welcome, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, thanks for having me. First time on a podcast.
So, Oliver, you've been making this BS1 grinder that I think a lot of people are starting to fall in love with. I have to be honest, in the beginning I wasn't too sure about it, but after trying it out at Hangla's class that we took, it's quite a versatile machine. How long have you been making it for?
I think I started, like the very first of that kind I made 2020 for myself. That was still in my old job at my parents' place, and the very first grinder that I built myself, that must have been like, I don't know, 13 years ago, it started getting old and, just lots of plain, all joints, very impractical anyway. And it was, a traditional knife-making belt grinder design. And I felt like after so many years, I wanted to build a new one for myself. And I probably had a much better idea what I wanted to go for. And I, just designed the kind of the BS0 in that sense, right? Like the first prototype. I talked to people, they liked it. And a good friend of mine, Chris from Calderon Blades, he I don't know, I showed it to him and he's like, yeah, wow, I want to have one of these. And then he had one of these, and, he has many people come by in his shop because he gives a lot of classes. So yeah, word got around, and I soon was somehow making small batches of them, and that's how that all started.
And what made you go for the direct drive? I guess you have a serrated wheel on directly mounted to the motor. Was that just for versatility, so you could use more attachments on it, or what made you go that way?
Yeah, the idea is that the drive wheel down there is kind of always around. Like you don't have to put in a contact wheel as an attachment, which costs you time, which costs you efficiency, costs you stability. All that is just gone if you always have a contact wheel on your machine, and then from there you go and you can, change all the rest of the machine to your liking, kind of, and put different attachments in from there. And I think somehow the logic of how long a typical grinding belt is, like 2 meters, or is it maybe 72 inches in the US, but it's about the same, and you need to just make a design that somehow deals with that belt length in the most useful way. So I guess that's how that design came about.
On that note, I'm curious, how many machines did you sell to the US so far? Did you sell any?
With the price of a belt grinder and the shipping costs to the US, it's really hard to break even there unless you really, fill a whole container. Plus the adaptation, you have to redesign the machine for a different belt length. You have to use different electrical components and so on. But I'm not even saying that this is all like something you couldn't overcome. But just so far, I haven't tackled that.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, you have a lot of work anyways. I have the feeling. Yeah, so, but I was just curious if people over there are, buying it as well or not, or...
I think I have about 5 inquiries per week about rolling mill, and maybe 1 in a month or so about belt grinders from the US.
Yeah, the rolling mill is really a standout product. I mean, I don't know if there is any competition regarding that in that size and all that, other than DIY made.
Right, there are these treadle mills that they're nice. Maybe they get you there, but I think it's like a much bigger time commitment to draw anything out on them. And then I don't know. I mean, I don't know of any. There are these machines for goldsmiths that you find on the market, but they are usually. I watched this. They like after a few years they fall apart when you do blacksmithing with them.
Yeah, they are too weak. I would guess. Yeah.
All the gears start to break and all the bearings are too weak. Like it's not meant for it.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I mean, then there is this maybe 3 companies or so that build like the next bigger scale of stuff, and there I maybe inquired there once and it was like, a 5-digit number, or 6-digit number. I mean, it's a very different price range again.
And very little companies would even buy that. I mean, I could only think of Baker, Fortune Tools, or Dama Steel, who have, and Tobias, who have
right. Yeah, that's
those
like
kind of
the ballpark, like size wise. And if you get them new today, they are like not affordable for any knife maker, usually at least.
Although I will say I could totally see Albert snatch up one of those if they are cheap.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
we have been
how
looking.
many power hammers do you have right now?
5.
Oh, I'm surprised. It's not even that much.
I have 7.
No, we have more, but we have 5 working power hammers, but we're selling 2. So we have 7 now. Yeah, but we're not gonna keep the 2 small ones. So
Albert, what's up with the shop and the moving? I get sweaty cold hands every time I hear you guys talking about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Any news?
Not really, no.
Fuck.
But we don't. I mean, the good news is we don't have to move out end of July. So no, 1st of July. That was our fear.
How much time have you got?
Yeah, an additional month, I guess. So yeah, still plenty of time. So
yeah.
No, seriously, but because we thought that we would have to move out 1st of July, so that's not happening. So we have an additional month to find a new shop. So we maybe even 2, so no one knows what's happening with the building. So we get contradictory information about what they want to do with the building and everything. So we have till 1st of August at least. So that's good.
Are you in direct contact with the landlord, or is it a very third-party situation, talking to different people, or just accountants or something like that, or how does that work?
No, the company is owned by a very rich entrepreneur, who's retired and everything, and he has a company that deals with all his real estate and everything, and we are not in direct contact, but we have someone who is in direct contact with the lady that takes care of all the buildings and everything.
Okay.
So there's one guy in our building, Stefan. Keith knows him.
Yeah,
he's the guy who we take with us to Solingen and everywhere we go, basically. And he's in contact with the lady that is in charge of the building. So, but there is no direct contact with the actual owner of the building. So that's why everything takes so long, because he has to decide everything, because she's just an employee.
Yeah.
She's just an employee, and she has to pass on the information to Stefan. Stefan passes on the information to us. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's far from ideal. So everything takes forever, as you can imagine, because there's always 2 or 3 people at least involved.
Yeah. What's plan B and C if you don't find anything?
I mean, plan B is we move out, take all our stuff, put it somewhere, some storage facility, and keep looking. And we don't have a plan C. I mean, plan C is closing the company.
Plan C was
but it's not gonna happen.
Moving into Calderum's shop.
Yeah, not moving. Plan C is moving to the Netherlands to Matt.
Yeah.
No, that's not really an option. Yeah,
Huh.
that's it. So no news, but you will see it on Instagram if anything's happening.
Yeah. Fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the best of luck anyways.
Thanks.
But
yeah. Thanks.
Very tough situation. But that you can stay there for long is absolutely no option whatsoever. No. I mean, if you pay more or
no, neither for us nor for the owner of the building.
Okay.
Because we would have to invest just too much money to get everything up and
They have
running
to
properly.
buy safety codes and everything.
Fire safety codes, everything. I mean, parking spaces.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Damn.
So that's not an option. No. So we will move out, and we have to move out. So it's not an option to stay here. So that's clear. But don't worry, we'll find something.
Yeah, don't worry. I worry.
If we close our shop, there will be plenty of power hammers hitting the market. So watch out.
The power hammer bubble bursting.
Yeah, price is dropping in Central Europe for powers.
Oh, perfect.
But we are actually restoring a Kuhnreiter power hammer now. So we started restoring a 50 kilogram Ram Kuhnreiter,
Okay.
which is a very fun project. We disassembled the machine completely.
Yeah.
We sandblasted the housing. We have to do some milling and we have to make new dies and everything. So that's a lot of fun, actually. Yeah. So that's what we're doing now.
Do you also have to do like mechanical refitting of components, or
Only the dies and maybe some bolts and nuts and these things. But Kuhnreiter machines are very simple machines, so they're easy to fix. So some parts we ordered new piston rings and stuff because we can't make them on ourselves, but we have to make new dies and everything. So that's going to be a fun project, and we want to be done with the restoration before we move out. So that has to be happening next month.
Ambitious.
No, but we are almost done. So
it's always better to not have to move an exploded machine that's spread out
Yeah.
on 5 pallets
Yeah.
or so.
exactly, yeah. So we even want to have it painted because we have a professional painter, like an old timer. He does old timer restorations and paintings of old timers, and he paints our power hammer. And he's moving out too. So he's moving out 1st of July. So, and we asked him if he could paint the machine because we wanted to look like brand new when we're done. And he's a professional.
What do you think it will be worth? Or do you keep it? Is it for sale?
No, we're not keeping it.
What would you?
It's gonna be. We asked for $6,000. We have a buyer already, to be honest.
Okay.
And he gets a steel foundation because we already have a steel foundation for it, which weighs, I think, 1.5 tons,
Nice.
which is worth, I think, 1,500 euros or something, at least.
Yeah.
And he gets the steel foundation with the power hammer for free.
Who made the steel foundation?
No, it was part of the power hammer. When we bought it, we took it with us.
Oh, okay.
So
How is it constructed? Because I thought about the steel foundation with my hammer, and I thought about hundreds of sheets, like 10 millimeters thick, just stacking them up or something like that.
Mhm.
But how is this one constructed? How?
No, it's a solid piece of steel.
Oh fuck!
It's 25 centimeters high, and it's as tall as the power hammer is. So
Nice.
So it's extremely heavy. And we didn't even know that there is a steel foundation underneath the power hammer. We tried to lift the power hammer with the forklift, and the forklift wasn't able to lift the power hammer. And we were super surprised because the power hammer is very light. It's like 800 kilograms or something.
Yeah.
And the forklift was rated to 2 tons. And we couldn't lift the power hammer. And only then we found out that there's a solid piece of steel underneath it, which the power hammer is bolted to. So
Yeah. After looking for hidden bolts into the foundation, probably.
Yeah, and so it's $6,000 for the steel foundation plus the hammer, which is a pretty good deal, I think.
I would say so. Yes. Yeah.
Because it's gonna run like brand new when we're done with it. So
Nice.
And you guys all know the knife maker who bought it, but I can't tell you guys now. But you'll see.
What a shame.
Yeah, I'll tell you in the after show. Yeah.
Is it one of these knife makers that will probably make it look old again after 2 weeks, or
No.
I think it's someone that will take care of it?
Yeah, he will take very good care of it. Because
Okay, Martin
looking
is
at
out.
Chris is also out.
No, it's no one from Austria. That much I can say. But looking at his knives and looking at how clean they are, and the hammer will get a good home, I'm sure.
Huh.
Yeah,
What?
I'll tell you in the after show.
Perfect. I'm dying.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you give us a hint? Was he a guest on our show already?
I'm not gonna tell you, Keith, because
I think I might
you're way
know.
too smart. I think so too. You can type it in the chat, and we'll talk about it in the after show.
Don't type in the chat. I will read it.
One of the big reasons I wanted to have Oliver on the show is because of he makes this awesome jig, the Universal Blade jig. I wanted to hear the story about how you came up with that idea and who helped you along the way.
Well, you invited the person that came up with the idea. I guess.
What a coincidence.
It's the one that's muted. Ben, I mean, I don't know where you, if that's your idea. I think I have never really asked you. I heard some Americans tell me that they saw that idea way before with someone else, but I'm not sure exactly how the history is before I got to know that you had this idea.
I mean, I don't consciously remember seeing it anywhere, but since it's such a simple approach, I wouldn't be astonished if someone came up before me with that. So it's really not that special of a thing.
Now that you say that, they will kick me out of this chat again. It's like, who came up with this awesome idea? It's not such a special thing. Okay, good night.
No, I mean, I think you refined it, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think the base idea, just keeping the blade at a fixed angle, sort of, and not having the upper parts of the blade touch the belt accidentally, because I'm a moron and I completely totally all the time did that. So I think that idea isn't really rocket science on that basis, but you refined the tool and with all the attachments. I think you have 3 by now, right? With those, how do you say it? How the lip?
Those inserts that hold the blade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are different designs now. I just reacted a little bit to what people, that's the great thing. I made a version 1 about a year ago, and I got so much feedback from all sorts of people, and then I made the version 2 that has this fine adjustment now. So you have a little screw that you can turn, and you can just, change the distance between the blade spine and the grinding belt now without, opening any clamps or resetting anything. You just do it on the fly as the belt grinder is running, and you don't necessarily have to calculate, any angle or something. You can also just eyeball it, and, you feel like, okay, maybe the angle's not right yet. I'll turn a little bit, and maybe now it works. And that's the one adjustment. And now this other thing is that these inserts that hold the blade are, also come in different shapes. It's probably more a convenience thing, because from the beginning I imagined them to be modified by the people, and it's also was like in the operator's manual and so on, and in the videos. But now I just made the move to cut like sort of the preferred shapes that will always get used or will get used by many people.
I think that makes complete sense, and I always admire how you iterate your machines and your constructions upon criticism of your customers, because there's at least I think I see that in your machines, where you always change up designs or make improvements based upon criticism from your customers, or things like that. So
I think it's the way forward, because honestly, I'm not especially in that regard to the jig. Like, I'm not even a jig person myself so much. Like, I did not develop this jig for me, because when I make knives, I mostly grind them freehand. But I also can see that many people like that. Some people might need it, especially, for example, if you give knife making classes. Most people can't grind their first knife without a jig, and it looks great.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a big market, and there are people like you, Ben, who just optimize any process. I mean, you are a pro, you can grind any blade freehand. I have no doubt about that.
Nope. But thanks.
Still, you are like, yes, I want this process to be efficient and reliable, and so that's why you also work with all sorts of jigs. And
not only that, I can tell you, and I think you could advertise it as such as well. What I see some makers do is always those test cuts and looking into how the blade performs. But if you have a jig and a certain angle that is
Repeatable.
constant, and the edge thickness is the same as well, you can measure that, then you will always end up with the same performance given a certain baseline of, frame factors, that are the same. And in those regards, it's also about quality and consistency. So I'm stupid and I need it, but it also has other benefits. I think it's
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I never liked jigs, and I was surprised
Kind of
hearing
gay.
that Hangla that Hangla did classes and let his students like grind right away, and I was curious like how that was going to work. And we started out with that jig, and I kept finding that like you have the hand where you can push and put pressure on the blade, and I kept like finding myself trying to do it freehand, like half on the jig and half without using the pressure. And then when I took a few minutes to get used to it, and even people who had never grinded before were stepping up in the class and had like pretty consistent and even grinds like within 15 minutes or so.
Did you already
it was quite impressive.
Sorry. Did you already
Yeah.
have the leverage tool Oliver developed later on? Was that already in Hangler's shop?
Came from the beginning. Correct me if I'm wrong, Keith. I think you already, you bought one of the very, very first ones and that already had a lever.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, the very beginning was that. So, you guys all know that, but maybe for the audience, Tobias Hangler, he's my workshop neighbor. So he's next door, and of course he's the first one to come over and tell me all his smart ideas and also the dumb ones. So, and then one day he showed me this. He just used like a clamp and a little piece of steel that he had ground, like a like one of these blade inserts nowadays and the jig, and he just had a super basic setup and showed me, this is something he heard from Kamon and this is how he tries to grind now. And I quickly said, okay, let's try to make that a little bit more fancy. And so that's how the thing then came about. And he had this lever as well in the beginning, and then it got optimized over time. I think it's pretty helpful, especially because when you have very thin blades, like kitchen knives, you can't even put them on, on an angle block or something if you want to keep an angle, because you will just twist and warp your blade when you clamp it. So that's the nice thing about the jig. It doesn't put the blade under stress, kind of under warp or something. Yeah. So for those things, it's great. And on the other hand, I think for some people and for some knives, it is definitely not the right tool. I have to say that, to be honest.
Yeah, for folder blades that are very short and thick, something like that, right?
That's not really what it's made for. Then you just...
For those blades, you have those, how did you call them? Those fixtures anyways, the angle fixtures. So
like the normal bevel jigs.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I tried to say.
Yeah, and if you use my grinder, you don't even need a bevel jig. You just need a rectangular block of steel, because you can set the angle easily.
Just like a 1, 2, 3 block to hold it.
Right, 1, 2, 3 block, and you're done.
So I'm gonna let Albert try mine next time I visit him, and he's gonna need some for his class. Then after he tries it.
No, we definitely do, because we try to use the normal bevel jigs, and usually people want to build kitchen knives when we do classes. The normal bevel jigs don't work for the very reason you guys mentioned, because the blade keeps moving on the jig. So it's basically impossible to grind with the jigs we own a consistent angle. So we definitely need some of those jigs Oliver made.
I'll sell you mine because I want the updated version with the fine adjustment.
Oliver,
why would I buy the old version?
Because that's what he had. It was the very I think one of the first ones after taking the class. I asked him if he would build me one, and he happened to have a couple.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That was we fast tracked that.
Oliver, how do you make sure with the fan adjustment if you change belt, like from a 40 grit, for example, and then go... I do that, so let's just theorize straight to a 400 grit. How do you adjust the angle in a way that it's still the same angle?
There is honestly no way to adjust it in the jig. So that the jig will automatically adjust for that. So what you do have to do, unfortunately, I mean, maybe you come up with a great idea, but I haven't found anything better than just measure the gap beforehand and then, maybe adjust for the difference.
I mean, maybe then that's something you can offer. I don't know if there is a market for that, but I need that in my work, because when I pre-grind the blades with 40 grit and then hit them with the 400 grit belt, I need the exact same angle. And yeah, what I do is I have the shims, and I have a 0.85, for example, millimeter shim.
Right.
And put it in, and then the reference of the lip that holds the span of the blade away from the belt is always the same to the surface of the grinding belt. And when you deliver some, 0.25, 0.5, and a bunch of shims, they can cheaply be made.
Like these feeler gauges that you can buy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, at least with my grinder, I don't know, with your precision adjustment, probably it would be sufficient, because there is no angle changing, right? Left and right. When you stand in front of it, it always is parallel to the blade, right?
Yes. Once you set it up the first time, it will stay there.
Yeah, then a gauge would be sufficient. Then you don't need to deliver it. But if someone is looking into that, I think that could be helpful, because then you just hold the thickness gauge in, and it's always the same measurement, no matter how thick your belt is. And no matter how worn out it is, because a 40 grit belt will change its thickness a lot.
Yeah, so for the people who are listening and then they don't know what this jig is, if they go to your website, you have an awesome explanation about the jig and how it's used, and quite a bit of videos. Can you tell us where the people can find that?
Yeah, if you go on www.tobinmachines.at, that's where you find everything, or you also find it on my Instagram.
Or in the show notes.
Or in the show notes.
In the show notes.
I just recently, finally, which it was a little bit embarrassing how long it took to create a good video of the jig, of the new version. But I finally created one, and yeah, I think it gives a good overview. And then there was it maybe a year ago or something? Vince from UK Blade Show came to Tobias, and
yeah,
they made a very nice video. Like, Tobias talks about all these different grinding techniques. And also one of them was the use of the jig, and he gave a very nice introduction.
Yeah, so I'm taking this jig with me. I bought two of them. I'm taking them with me to the US when I go. One's going to go to Brian House in his workshop. Bald Man Tools, Knife and Tools is going to try it out and explain it all to Brian. And the second one will go to Ryan Chadbourne from the work. What's the name of the podcast now? Forgot it.
Hustle and
Grind, yeah. Slipped my mind for a second.
Yeah, I'm curious what they will think about it. I know that Brian's is, just also a very, what's the word in English? I don't know, but he just has a lot of stuff going on, and pretty cool things. Seems to be very inventive about business ideas and things you can also just develop for a community. So that's pretty cool.
So what other machines do you have besides the roller mill, and you work on a lot of different grinding attachments for yours? The surface grinder is really interesting.
Right, yeah. So that was actually also an initial idea for that belt grinder design, that I wanted something that's sturdy enough to really hold a surface grinder very close to the machine, so everything stays very rigid. And that's also why having a contact wheel in the front is nice when it sits on a very sturdy base frame. So you can attach a surface grinding attachment without long levers or long outcroppings, or like a cantilever that goes out half a meter, and then everything will bend away and your results will be shitty. So that was actually one of the first things I developed, because I wanted this for myself really badly. Just got a new version of that, because people have been asking for a very long time to get switchable magnets in the surface grinder, and now they have that.
What's the benefit of that?
So in the old one, it just used very strong permanent magnets. So when you would put a knife or whatever, or like a blade or a piece of Damascus steel to prepare it for forge welding, you would just put it on the magnetic plate and it would stay there. It was really hard to get off, depending on the size. And yeah, there was probably one or two people that, got their finger in between and...
Yeah, I get pinched.
Yeah, I got pinched. So now it's very nice. You just put it there and then you turn a few knobs and it will hold in place.
And you could do tape and tangs on them now too, right? On the new version.
You could do that before too, but it was a little bit more cumbersome to set up. And now it's very straightforward. And I think it's a pretty, I like the new design much better personally.
You can clean it as well, right? Better from the grinding dust.
Yeah, you can switch off the magnets and it's completely unmagnetic, in fact. So it's very easy to get all the dust off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you use a surface grinder? Come on.
No. I mean, I don't make Damascus, and when I make my sun mice, it's sufficient to make them inefficient. So no, I mean, I'd like to have one at some point because it's handy for different things, I guess. Yeah, I'm sure Oliver uses it occasionally.
Well, to be honest, I have Anglia next door and he has a big surface grinder, so I just walk over and put it there.
Ah, yeah, that's true. Do you? I recently I think I heard it on that podcast that you made knives and folders. I before that I had no clue that you are or were a knife maker for some reason.
Yes, I still consider myself a knife maker, even though I rarely have time to make knives.
For me, you're totally the machine guy, so I didn't never know.
Fair enough. Yeah, I started making knives when I was 15, so it's quite some.
Damn.
So, I started pretty quickly making folding knives just because I really liked the mechanics, also developing different locking mechanisms and whatnot. And it was cool. Back then I was in like a technical high school in Austria. They have, like you guys know it, the HTL, a high school where you just really learn all the engineering stuff, very hands-on. And I was able to use all the workshop there and the milling machines and the lathes and whatnot. So I could really make pretty nice folding knives. I mean, today I would not find them pretty nice, but I was proud that I got them working at all. And it was funny because all the teachers there in the workshop, they also, once they saw that I made folding knives, they opened their little cabinet or so, and they showed me that they were also working on knives in the school. So that was funny.
It's somehow stereotypically male, I guess. If men do something out of boredom or just because to get excited, it's either they make fire or they make knives. It's or some kind of other weapons. It's
terror, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen one of your knives. Do you have them on your Instagram or somewhere?
No, I think my Instagram was after I switched to the machine, so I never really put my knives on, but I should actually do that because...
Yeah.
You have some on your website, yeah.
Still, like my website, I already had when I was... So during studying, like before, the belt grinder and everything, before I started selling them, I just had a Facebook page, and basically the ancestor of the website I have now, and I just put my knives there, and occasionally I sold one. I was still studying, and I had a little side hustle with knife making, but not really not really a big business case there.
Yeah.
But I had a website, and I had a lot of knives on the website, and I reduced that section completely since I started doing the machine stuff. But if you go on my website, there is still like a menu point that says knife projects, and you can just click through a few photos and get an idea.
Yeah, I've got it. Never seen that before. When have you made your last knife?
I don't know what the last is because the assortment in the gallery is randomized. So
no, but how long ago is it that you made your last folder?
My last folder, That's probably about 4 years ago. Actually, maybe this weekend I might make a new one. I've been talking about it for a long time, and so Chris from Calderum and me, we have some mutual friends that are not knife makers at all, and he has. So this friend, he already made 2 knives with us, and he lost both of them. So now it's gonna be the 3rd attempt to make a knife that hopefully lasts, like a folding knife. And I said, yeah, I'll also join and maybe make a folding knife as well, or make something fun. I'm actually holding the last folding knife that I made. I'm holding it in my hand right now. It's it has titanium Damascus scales. Pretty fancy, showy knife, yeah, but never really did anything besides collecting dust.
I see your kitchen knives. Do they have takedown handles, or is that just a mechanical fit and glue up, or how do they work?
Some of them were takedowns, but most of them were glued, yeah. And then sometimes maybe, after gluing or during gluing, I would just put a fake screw in the end.
Yeah, I mean, the kitchen knives look nice, and I knew you make, can forge and make nice knives. I've seen them, but the folding knives are pretty impressive. I like folders mainly because I can make them. And
I was hoping, because you guys all have you all have a class set up with Chris to make folders, and I would really like to also just be there. I don't need to make my own folder with his guidance, but I would like to hang around and give you crap or whatever I do. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
And I have to bail from that class because it's just too much time involvement right now. But I would love to participate with that one.
I mean, do you already have a new date?
I don't think so.
No, but Chris, I think, is pretty motivated to make it happen, soon, more or less,
It's
a
just
few
hard,
weeks,
it's
months.
With 6 or 7 of us in the class to get everybody together that has time.
Everybody has full schedules.
No, but very nice. Yeah, you should make more folders.
I should, yeah. Everything in your knives is takedown, and all the surface treatments are really unique and really cool. And no matter how close you look, there is absolutely no flaw. So I think on a folding knife that all would come together really nicely.
I honestly, I don't know, because many of my finishes or ideas I steal from the folding knife sector. For example, I mean stealing. Yeah, I would call it like that. The black titanium
Inspired.
scales, for example. Yeah, inspired. No, I'm stealing. Black titanium scales on kitchen knives. You usually don't see black titanium parts. You oftentimes see silver spacers or copper spacers, but typically, or I don't know that I have seen black titanium on kitchen knives. That's totally from folders. Folder guys have done that since probably 20 years or longer, So I don't know if it would be that impressive in a folder, actually, because all that stems from folders, all those ideas and the machining parts. But I mean, I'm honored that you say that, but I would like to make a folder. Because I'm so interested in those.
That's like saying, yeah, most blades are made of steel, so it would probably not be impressive to make a steel blade. It's not so much about the material. I think it's more about the way the whole design comes together.
Yeah, true. But so many of those guys are so fucking educated. I mean, I follow Terzola and Alan Elizabeth, and the videos they put out, which get shockingly low amounts of likes and views, 200 likes, but he pours out knowledge in an 8-minute video you can barely comprehend. And that guy is in business since 30 years or something.
Yeah.
Elizabeth and Terzola even longer, I guess. So to compete with that and make something appealing, where guys are around that, made it all. Michael Walker, for example. I mean, look at his knives. It's crazy what he does.
Yeah, but you're kind of getting into the next generation of knife makers, and the people that are our age are following
No, totally.
makers that are our age. So, if you can make a folding knife that somehow looks like a Kamon, a Denti folder or something like that,
Possibly,
you'd have
but
no
if I
problem
could
selling.
really innovate there, I doubt it. Kitchen knives are way newer in those regards, I would say. Not as established as hunting knives and folders, generally speaking, regarding the whole market and whatnot. So I think there is a lot more space to innovate and do something new, under air quotes, or something exciting. Whereas in the folding knife sector, it's a really tough competition. And I mean, I am a fan of it, don't get me wrong. It's super nice to see, but coming up with something new is just more difficult if there is so much innovation around already. I would have no concrete ideas, but yeah. I'm getting excited about folders. They are just cool.
Talking about innovations and stuff like that, all of our in one of your folding knives, like a third of the way down from like the pivot is some kind of is that the locking mechanism or something that slides in on the handle, or what is that?
So I think you're talking about these knives that I don't know. I had this standard design that I started to build because I really liked it. It's a self-developed mechanism. It's like an assisted opener that uses kind of the same element as the assist lever and as the locking piece in the end. Like after the blade flips open, it's the same piece that kind of acts as a lock bar, and it uses two leaf springs that are cut in the side, like in the scale, which is like grade 5 titanium. And yeah, that's a really cool, I mean, I don't know, it was pretty fun developing that thing and creating all the jigs for it, to not like different kind of jig this time, but like all the different aids to create these knives efficiently, and that was pretty fun to make. And I think there are like 8 or 9 of them that exist so far, and I still have scales that are pre-cut because cutting these leaf springs out of titanium grade 5, that's pretty horrible work to do. So I had them EDM cut at some point. You see this one picture in that gallery. I don't know when it will show up for you guys, but just a random assortment of parts on a workbench, like folding knife parts, and there you see that side scale and the leaf spring in it.
So is it kind of like a double liner? Is that how the lock works? Like a double liner lock or something?
There's nothing really double in it. I should maybe just put a video on Instagram at one point.
It's a pin, right? And it goes into holes. One when it's opened and one when it's locked. Is that right? Something like a pin?
No, it's basically like, so there's a lever that sits kind of in the same plane as the blade. Oh. And it pivots around the point that's close to the backspacer of the knife. Oh. And then it will lock kind of from the bottom, like by getting pushed up from the bottom against the rear end of the blade, kind of the end that faces into the handle. And there you have basically the same mechanism or the same like angle of attack as in the liner lock, just that the bar doesn't come from the side, but it comes from the bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
Comes from the bottom after basically flipping the knife open. Like flipping the knife open moves that lever downwards, and then once the blade is flipped open, the locking lever will flip back up and then just block the blade. So in order to release the blade, you have this operating knob on the outside that you push downwards, and then the blade unlocks.
Do you know Snack's knife by any chance?
Snacks.
He has some innovative lock designs as well, and I just wanted to say I always love seeing new locking mechanisms on folding knives, especially if they make sense. I mean, some are just for show, or
so where there's 2 gears or whatever. It's great, but it's probably for display.
Yeah, just for display or to show the engineering side or something. But he developed a lock that is on the spine and it's symmetrical. And I mean, next time we see each other, I have to show you a knife from him. Not him personally. He makes knives personally as well, but they're in the 3K upwards range. But he had a licensed production run from V Knives. And regarding quality, it's really nice, and the mechanism is super cool. I could totally see you appreciate that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see each other soon because you get a contact wheel from me. But
yeah.
And then I will bring my knife of that kind, and you can take a look.
Oh, you still have it? I mean, I wanted to ask if it's sold or if you still have it, but if you have it, I want to see all of them.
I made 9 of them or so, like of that kind of mechanism. A few are sold, but most of them actually are right here with me in the room right now in my little dust collection there.
Yeah, good to know.
Hello.
Maybe not for long.
Yeah, you know how it is. Like once you make a few knives of a kind, you also just start to not care that much about them. I guess you know that.
Yeah, that's true. I have a bunch of knives I just keep for sentimental value. But really, when I think rationally about it, I think about selling them. But then I think it would be cool to have them in 20 years. Just look at them like an old photo or something like that. But it's really stupid if you think about it.
I still have my first knife that I ever made. It still hangs out in the kitchen. It's kind of my steak knife. When I eat something that I needs a little bit sharper edge than just a butter knife. Because that's about where it ends for that knife. But for that, it's perfect.
Thicker geometry, I guess. Then for steaks, it's sufficient.
Yeah, no belt grinder. So just, filing before hardening and making a bad finish after hardening. So...
The old ways.
the old way. In the olden days, that's what we did.
You also have one of our listeners asked me about bread knives and how to do serrations and stuff. You make a serration attachment too, and I saw that that has like an insert that you put into. Is there different radius inserts, or is it just one radius? There
are 2 that come with it, and you can also just if someone orders one, I've made custom diameters as well. The inserts are actually very easy pieces. They are just a piece of round stock in the diameter. You make bevels in the end so that the belt runs on and off nicer, and then you have to drill one hole so that the thing doesn't slip down when you put it in that holder, and that's the insert. So I suspect many people make their own. That's also what I encourage people to do.
Good business advice.
Make your own.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think it's just also easier in a way. Like I want to enable people to make things themselves. That's somehow a little bit of a philosophy. Also, when you look at, for example, the tool arm system of my grinder, there are grinders out that have maybe fancy looking aluminum profiles and whatnot, and maybe some weird clamping mechanisms. I just really like to have simple square tubes, because I know that many people can just get a square tube somewhere and make their own attachments if they need them. I don't want to have anybody like always be begging me to make it for them. I want to enable people to create their own things, because I think that also sparks innovation that might bounce back.
Not only that, put in those terms, you have customers who will end up being more happy with your product, because they don't have to worry all the time that something might be, just available exclusive from you.
Right.
So I think that would, if that was the case, it would be a bitter aftertaste for the product, and they don't get that with yours. So I think in the long run, it's a good decision. And you would get overwhelmed with requests anyways, I guess, for all the little things people come up with,
And if you start to charge, for every spare part, and this is exclusive because I obfuscated my product so much that nobody can guess where to get things. I'm usually pretty open to people about how can they, I don't know, where can they get some spare parts, or what's the easiest way to make something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not completely open source or so, because then I think there would be 10 Chinese knockoffs by now, but I also don't think you should obstruct anyone that already left a lot of money, let's be honest. My machines are not the cheapest ones, but I also just think that once people make an investment, they want to have a good feeling about it.
Yeah. I mean, I have a similar philosophy about my knives regarding when people ask of refurbish or thinning of the knife. The first response of me is always put it flat on the stones and thin it. They are just so worried about the finish and whatnot, in my opinion. And I mean, I collect I wouldn't say collect, but I buy kitchen knives. I'm interested from other makers myself, and I would never go to the maker, ask him to refinish it, nor would I use my machines, because usually my machines wouldn't even fit, how that certain knife was made, and I would just thin it on the stones, and the finish that results from that is falls for me under the category patina. It just ages. The knife will age anyways with use, no matter what you do. But I mean, some people insist for me to refurbish the knives, and then I just have to charge them accordingly. But the first response from my end is, do it yourself, please. It's a tool. It's meant to be used, and go ahead, thin it. It's not even hard any hard of a job with a convex knife, really. You can just lay it flat on the stones, and you don't really have to be very talented to thin a knife, I would say, on coarse, good stones.
But that's also something I learned over the years of doing this. I shouldn't always assume that other people can do all the things that, I take for granted, kind of. It's like, I design these things. I see them every day. I thought about every thought already 10 times. So, of course, you have to, your customers, the community, they are still, you need to pick them up somewhere, and you need to sometimes also take their hand and say, yeah, look, this is how it looks like, and here's a video that shows that, and this is how it is. And I think it's no different. Like, for me, sometimes I inquired yesterday about like a DRO system, and for me it's completely unclear after I read all the documents on their website.
What is it? What system?
Digital readout system, like a measurement for a tooling machine or something. And I just have no idea how to piece together all the components they have on their website. And for them, it's probably clear because they work with this every day, and they probably find my inquiry that I sent out completely stupid, and they're probably like, yeah, just figure it out yourself. We have everything there. But I guess that's how it sometimes is. Like, advice doesn't always come across.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're always in your bubble and seeing things from your perspective, and I get it. That's why I offer all those people I recommend doing it themselves. I offer them that I do it, but I just clearly say it wouldn't be worth it to me, and it honestly wouldn't, because they are paying sometimes prices with shipping back and forth. And then if they ship from the US, I have to add the customs duties they will charge me for, even though it's a repair. But, if they charge me €50 customs duty to import it, it's just way too much work to go to the shipping company and tell them that I'm just doing a repair. I've tried to do that, and it was successful, but that was 20 emails back and forth to make them, and that doesn't pay off. So I then add it to the invoice for the customer, and I just tell them it doesn't worth it isn't worth it in my opinion. But if you insist, I'll do it. But
that's why you shouldn't have all your customers in the US, huh?
yeah, I mean I don't. It's 50-50, but yeah, I have. I mean, I don't know. I didn't put up on Instagram a picture of my map that I have, but Europe is pretty filled up as well with pins. So it's not just the US, but US customers are not as how do I put that? they are usually easier to work with for some reason. I don't. I have the feeling they just know what they want, and either they know the price or they just have a ballpark of it, and usually most of them just say okay. Whereas with some European customers, I get emails you can't imagine regarding the not only the profile details and so on, but measurements throughout the blade of thicknesses and all that kind of stuff. I've never gotten that from a US customer, even though many of my US customers are from the forums as well. So I'd consider them knife freaks also, but they operate on a different level than the European knife freak, I think.
Where are they getting all these measurements from? Are they just making them up, or if they're not a knife maker, how do they know?
No, I mean there are German forums where they discuss certain measurements even and certain geometries and what is successful and what is not grinding, sharpening angles, things like that. And then they just approach you with, look, I have that and that opinion for whatever reason. I mean, you can say they read it in a forum, or maybe they have a kitchen knife where it works and they just take those measurements. Some of them will do that actually, but they have the kitchen knife of a different maker and they like using the knife.
It's not your knife anymore. Then it's not your knife anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if I would make a knife with those measurements, it would still look like my knife, and I think that's their aim. They have a knife that works well, but they don't like the looks of it, or they're just bored with it, and then they come to you and want the performance of that knife, but from you, and then they approach you with all that shit. It's crazy. But I just wanted to say the US customer base is I'm very appreciative of them in a certain way. Also, I can sell net without value-added tax, so it's easy in accounting in some ways.
Albert, you still alive?
Sure. I'm shopping on Auror's website.
That's really funny because, Albert, I'm shopping on your website right now.
What do you need?
I don't know. Let's see. But I was just like, how do the knives look like that Albert makes? So.
Yeah, but my website is old. You have to look on Instagram.
Website updates are a pain in the ass.
Yeah, they are. They take forever. I mean, it never ends.
Yeah, it's almost like Windows.
It takes 4 hours. Yeah. But here's the thing. I think there's a difference between a customer who buys a belt grinder and a customer who buys a knife. Because that's what I like about Tobin's designs, because the way he described it, a customer who buys a belt grinder usually is very skillful, right? Because it's either a knife maker or some other handy person, right? That's why it's easy for them to make new tooling arms and everything. But a customer who buys a knife, let's say one of yours, usually doesn't have to be as skilled. Let's put it that way, right? So that's why there's a difference, but people send back the knives and they want you to do the refurbishing. So I think that's a difference.
For the most part, I agree. But there are definitely exceptions to that rule.
Of course, there's always exceptions, but statistically speaking, I think there's a difference.
Mm-hmm. I know what you're saying, but I think, I mean, for example, compared to, I can say it for Martin Huber, for example. I don't know about you, but I expect it similar with you. But he goes to the Austrian shows and all that, and so he gets a lot of customers who are local, who maybe don't even are into kitchen knives as a hobby, but they see the Damascus and it's appealing to them, and then it's not that much of money for them, and they just buy it, but they would be kind of overwhelmed with and Martin tells me they would be kind of overwhelmed with a very thin edge and maybe a steel that is heat treated to a too high of a hardness, because they would chip the edge and things like that, and those kind of customers would then have problems thinning the knives. And I totally get that, but I'm for some reason just getting a lot of those forum knife freak customers, and they at least sharpen their knives by hand, like 95%, okay. I would say. Some send them out to Crocker Cutlery or whoever, sharpening services. But that's why I'm kind of shocked, because I know many of them have, for example, Japanese natural stones in the value of $5,000 or more. They're just crazy collectors for anything regarding knives. I mean, you have to imagine stones of that value.
I mean, it definitely depends on the customer, but of course, if the customer is a nerd, you usually expect them to be able to do such simple tasks. But customers don't have to be nerds when they buy knives, but they have to be somewhat nerdy when they buy a belt grinder.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Or a craftsperson at least. Yeah.
Or a craftsperson at least,
that's true.
That's what I meant, yeah.
There's a difference, for sure.
Oliver, do you have people who buy your belt grinder that aren't knife makers? They being used in other industries?
Quite a few. Definitely, like, some of those typical makers that just, create all sorts of things that are not necessarily knives, but I don't know. There is one person that bought my belt grinder. I think he makes a lot of like skeleton, the Olympic discipline of skeleton racing, like in an ice channel or what that is. And he creates a lot of those things, and they are made from carbon, and it's all very, very high tech in a sense. Then there are some workshops for, apprentice training in a big company of Austria. They recently ordered a machine, which was very surprising, where I actually don't know where that's coming from. I feel like often it's maybe purchases from people that took a class somewhere, like a knife making class, and then thought, okay, maybe that could also be useful for my business, which is maybe completely unrelated to knife making, but maybe still does some sort of metal processing.
I have a question in regards to that, because when I was working in the blacksmith shop, we had those grit belt grinders. I don't know if you know them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the basic, metal fabrication belt grinders you'll see in every metal shop.
If you ask anyone in the metal business, they say, this is how a belt grinder looks.
Exactly. But when I looked them up, I mean, I don't know the exact pricing of them, but as far as I know, they are pretty much your prices or more. I found some that are
more,
double yours. Yeah. And I'm just astonished why those fabrication shops or metalworking shops don't buy knife belt grinders or yours, for example, because
that's true. Yeah.
I mean, I know there are some weak belt grinders out there, but yours is not that, and I wonder why they don't use a.
That's a very good question, because these things they don't even have any features, right?
No versatility.
One or maybe two speeds. They only have like a very inaccessible platen and then the contact wheel at front. So basically the only thing you can do with them is prepare welds and deburr things. Anything more complicated is usually out of scope for those. Yeah, very good question.
I mean, I know why they use them, because we bought two out of a die forge, a Gesenkschmiede, and they had a very large accessible flat platen at the top. You could open a lid. And these machines are beasts. I know they're super expensive. They're like $2,000 or something, but these machines they last forever, and they're built for very hard work, for very tough use. So that's why they buy them. And ours has a 75 millimeter belt, for instance, and not like a normal belt grinder for a knife maker has like a 50 millimeter
Yeah,
belt.
but Oliver offers the 75 as well.
I know, but I think it also makes sense to have it horizontal in a die forge or a big blacksmith shop, because then you can access the top of the flat platen on top. That's what I meant. But yeah, they're overpriced. I agree. I mean, for what they do, they have ours. They have one speed.
Yeah,
so it's either
and
on
the
or
speed
off.
is crazy as well.
Yeah, and on means extremely fast and loud, and everything.
If I remember
shaking.
correctly, it's 40 meters per second, or yeah, I think so. Because their traction wheel is 250, but Oliver has the same. But the motor is 3,000 RPM. I don't know what yours is, Oliver.
Yeah, it's half of it, like 4,500 or so. But then I go a little bit above 50 hertz, so you can't quite make the comparison.
Does it work?
It works.
Damn. Is that allowed?
This is allowed, yes.
Sounds exciting. Sounds like tuning.
Yeah, that's like the illegal e-bike tuning, but for belt grinders.
I think a lot of people just don't know that these belt grinders exist unless you're into knife making. Like, I think of all the things I use my belt grinder like the most out of anything in my shop. I could be working on wood or fixing something. I always go like, that's my go-to to the belt grinder.
Yeah.
To give an aspect to the original question, the rolling mill is an interesting one there, because I've already sold 2 of them to like research institutes or to, an R&D department in a very large company that has nothing to do with knives or even steel processing.
Tell us the company.
Yeah, I will.
Oh, you can't, right?
They do stuff with copper, and they wanted one for their R&D, and they roll out their specimen with it.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, there's no competition on that.
That's when you type in rolling mill, then there is just not much. So
yeah,
it's a pretty unique machine, I think, because it's very compact and very powerful. And that's usually 2 properties that don't mix very well. But with your machine, it is. I mean, we love ours. We also love that it takes up so little space in our shop, because the one Toby has and Baker Forge and Tooling, I mean, it takes up a whole room.
I mean, of
right?
course, yeah, so if you have it. I did a forging day with Toby when I made the first of these production, or like it was a prototype, the very first prototype, but it's 95% the same design. And we forge welded and drew out like his billets for 1 day straight, yeah. And looked how the thing was performing and what it was doing and what it wasn't doing and so on and so on. And his verdict in the end was, yeah, I mean, of course I'm faster with my big one. It's probably about half the time, like 50%. Like he's twice as fast with the big one, but mine is like 280 kilograms and fits like on half a Euro pallet. And his one is a 7-ton beast that just needs its own inverter and has like a power supply that's as thick as, I don't know, my arm, yeah, almost. Like that puts it in perspective, and probably for many people the sweet spot is already below. Like rather, it doesn't require the 100% productivity if the 50% is so easy to access in comparison.
Toby is saving time, you said, because of his big rolling, but we wouldn't save any time because we do most of the forging with the power hammer, and we only use the rolling mill for the final like 2 or 3 passes. So we wouldn't have any use for a bigger one. So for us, yours is
most
perfect.
People don't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, one question about the rolling mill, because you talked about it before, and it's on your website that you were gonna make some kind of dies and stuff for it to do pattern Damascus. Is that still in the works? Or
that's in the works actually right now. It has not been easy to find someone that will do like an engraving for, say, like a raindrop pattern or something for like
on a round wheel.
Yeah. I mean, I already tried to make it an easy to mill part. So all you have to do is you mill a helix with a ball nose end mill.
Yeah.
So it's a very easy to make part. It's not like a 5-axis, running down the lines will take hours of your machine time. It's actually you can probably program that by hand with a little macro, and you just repeat it so in so many passes. But I have not found anyone because for a long time, because many companies are like, yeah, that looks like a 5-axis part, and this will probably take 5 hours to program and 5 hours to mill, so the thing costs 1,200 euros one roll. So that was not really what I was looking for. And I have a very capable guy in Slovakia that makes a lot of turn parts for me. And he's also like, he would fit in this podcast. He's like a one-man show, very talented CNC programmer. And he has this, he has also just dedication to play around with something. So I asked him to do that, and he doesn't really have a machine that's suitable for it, but it's good enough. And he tried one part last week and sent me a photo, and it looks very clean and very good. So now I'm shipping him like four rollers, and he's going to mill them probably next week or so. And then we have testing phase for that.
Or is this going to be raindrop pattern the first try? Or
just like little square pyramids kind of next to each other.
Okay.
So yeah.
Will it be hard milled or hardened after milling?
Hardened after milling. If so, the standard rollers, they are from a pre-tempered or pre-quenched material.
Yeah.
Vergütungsstahl, vorvergütet. And then they are nitrided. I don't know if that's a good enough treatment for those spiky things, because there's probably more of an edge pressure. Maybe I will have to just really harden them the old way, kind of, at least for these testing units then.
Yeah. I mean, I know a machining guy who has a small shop with a lathe. Because I don't know if he would have any capacities anyways.
I'll just have to see, and at some point that might not be enough, because maybe at some point for certain patterns you need a 5-axis program or something. It's the one thing to offer one standard pattern, and it's another thing to reliably offer special requests, kind of like everybody just approaches me and says, I want a roller that looks like this, and I want one that looks like that. It's hard to to put a price tag on it. B, it's hard to really hit the expectation of what the thing does. Like, I'm milling something that I don't even know if it will work the way I intended. I brainstormed with Tobias and Chris about it. We because they are also like rolling mill pros kind of at this point. So we came up with something, but maybe it still doesn't work, and I have to reiterate on that.
With your rolling mill, both wheels are
turning,
but you have to. I guess they are synchronized, and you have to have a certain symmetry for the pattern. Then
that's what I already like. I make all the rolling mills. When I make them, like the main gears that kind of synchronize the two, they have a special orientation already.
Okay.
Like the gears to each other, so that that the shafts or that the keyways of the shafts line up in a certain way.
Yeah.
Which I will always keep the same, so that these rollers that people put in are definitely always known to be in sync pattern wise. Something I did from the beginning because of that issue. Otherwise.
Smart. You were planning ahead there.
Sometimes I do. I can't even make a shopping list for 2 days, but I was able to plan that ahead.
Maybe that's why you can't do the shopping list, because all the resources are used up.
But when do you want to be done with the testing phase, and when are they going to be available? Do you have a plan for that?
Faster than your workshop comes by, hopefully.
That's mean.
I know. No, I don't know.
I
think once we have them here, we're just gonna heat up a billet and try, and then probably it will pretty quickly show what it can and can't.
But like a ladder pattern would probably be a simple one to mill to keep the cost down, just to see.
Right.
If it's
I mean,
feasible.
that's basically just lines of high and low. That's also an easy one. Yeah. And then there are all these ideas can we taper a blade? Can you kind of like have a roller that's as it rolls around, as it turns around, it increases in diameter. It's basically a spiral.
Yeah.
You put it all the way in, and then you kind of start, and it turns backwards and pushes the blade out and gets progressively thicker, so that the tip gets thinner.
You'd have to control the speed of the roller or something somehow, because what if you have a longer bar?
I think that's not so much of a problem. But yeah, they're interesting things. I mean, I brainstormed once, and you can also maybe just say you have a larger Damascus strip, or you forged a piece of Damascus steel or like a laminate, and now it has like ugly seams that are maybe even have welds in it, like MacLeods. And now you just want to remove the seams and make it a perfect 50 millimeter wide stock or so to sell. Maybe you can also just make rollers that, cut the material apart.
Shearing rollers.
Shear the sides off as it pulls it through.
Fuck. Imagine that thing catching on to the billet on a tilt and then cutting right through it.
To the middle.
Like, that's exactly the biggest fear I have with it.
Yeah. And all that work is gone, and you can't stop it because it's so quickly with so much force. Gone.
You have to watch it slowly get ripped to pieces.
Not slowly. I mean, it's pretty quick, I guess.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, it's already like it has happened a few times that the mill just, that the piece bends and kind of creates a ring over the machine that almost wants to run back into the mill. Like, weird things happen.
Yeah, when we had the class, we always heat treated with two guys, and you got I would have my bar ready, and the other guy would be waiting at the machine to do the adjustments. And the guy that I got just hogged it down. He cranked that thing down every time I put a piece of steel in. It came out like a banana on the other side, curling up. I'm like, you gotta take smaller bites.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially when you have inconsistencies, or the laminate has maybe. It's not completely evenly distributed throughout its cross section, and you can get really weird effects. And then you need to take it easy, because otherwise, like if you take a big pass on something uneven, it will just do something undesirable.
Yeah, I mean, he got the machine to stop a few times, so I don't know if that was it's the safety feature that you have in it.
It is, yeah. Like there's a slipping clutch, so if you just really overload it, then it will stop.
Arm is not sufficient to overload it, right?
No. I think it would have no problem
Damn.
with your arm.
What I was worried a lot with Hangler when he had his rolling mill, and we were brainstorming a little about safety and those kind of things, because I visited him and we talked about it. Yeah, the big one. And I told him, if you ever put a billet in and it catches onto your to the jaws of your tongues, and the handle of the tongues is already close to each other, that motherfucker catches onto your hand if your fingers are between, and that motherfucker is pulling you right in. And that's always, I mean, I would be super conscious about not putting my fingers between the tongue handles.
Between the, yeah.
For one, yeah. And then, because he told me, even if you have then we said, okay, we have to, the emergency shutdown close by, and that you can also operate it with your head or something. But he said the inertia is so big that that big rolling mill will pull you right in no matter what.
Yeah, he doesn't have a brake or so on that machine, so that runs forever after he switches it off.
Yeah. That's what he told me, and I was thinking, well.
Yeah, his thing is definitely like a piece of machine that you should have respect for. Yeah. I was always worried. So he recently changed the layout in his shop, but before that, like he always goes kind of in one direction, like from, I don't know, when you stand in front of the mill, like from left to right, from right to left. Yeah. And on the left side, like where it comes out, it was very close to like a shelf. Hey, watch out, because when your piece gets longer and you have someone that receives it on the receiving end, that stabs you against, like that goes right through and you're dead.
Yeah.
Stabbed by 1,000 Celsius hot like piece of metal. That's not fun.
Although I will say that would be an heroic way to die. I mean,
piece of
imagine
it's Damascus.
Yeah, it's not just death by sword, but it's death by glowing sword. That's I mean, that's legit.
I was just thinking they have for table saws, they have I don't know what kind of sensor this is, but it senses when there's a but that wouldn't work because you're forging with gloves on all the time.
Right.
Not only that, I mean, it's everything you're holding is conducting anyways because it's steel. But yeah, the glowing steel isn't as good of a conductor. I don't know, nerd shit. Yeah, but gloves. Yeah, but then still inertia. It won't stop even if it switches.
The big one, yeah, here's one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I settled with the pedal switch for that reason. So you at least always have an emergency stop.
How does that work? It just immediately goes the other direction?
No, it stops.
It's like a Notaus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't you have the feature that it can reverse the direction as well? Or
Yes. You mean for usability, not for safety.
Yeah, for usability now.
So it's got two steps. You step on. Normally the rolling mill switches on. You step really heavily on it, and you have the emergency stop. And the way you can change direction, which was actually one of the best inputs from testing the prototype before that, because people were like, yeah, but I want to switch it without going, manually on the switch on the panel. So what I implemented is a little logic that when you can activate that function, and when you release the pedal quickly, or when you release the pedal and step on it again, it will start in the other direction, like just the one that you didn't.
Yeah, but aside from the logic side of things or programming side of things, how does that work technically? Because isn't that a huge stress on the motor?
No, because it has a brake. The motor has a brake, so once you switch off the motor, the brake clutches in and stops the motor. So there's not really a big extra switching current.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah, the one that I tried, I think, was the prototype, and you had the reverse switch on the machine.
Right. I mean, then there's still the reverse switch there, and you can still deactivate that mode, so it starts in the same direction every time. If you go, if you have a constant direction, if you have a helper and you just give it around and around. But when you work alone, you can activate that mode and you can reverse it, like you can auto reverse it, and then you don't really touch the direction switch on the panel.
Or you deliver a robotic arm for the other side.
It wipes away the unskilled helper and replaces it.
Exactly. I mean, we need to do that now.
Cameron wants one of those arms in his shop now.
Yeah, definitely.
When Huber comes, so we can just wipe him off.
Whoops. Right out the door.
Oh, did you guys see Huber? They lost one of his bags with all his expensive knives in it for the show, for Blade Show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he should receive it. I think he's positive to receiving it.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's such a pain in the ass if you spend all that money and fly over there and then you got nothing to put on the table. I mean, at least he had one bag for sure.
That would be crazy. I mean, I don't hope that's the case. That would be a problem.
That really kills the mood in the very beginning.
No. How do you, I mean, I'm sure you thought about that when constructing your machines, since your business is mainly online and through shipping, I guess. How do you deal with warranty issues, if there are any? I mean,
good point, definitely. I just really try to make it rock solid. That's why I'm also, I was hesitant in the beginning with the rolling mills. I did a pass around in the beginning just to see that some people were able to try it and really give it a hard time. I recalculated that damn thing at least 3 times or so just to see that it's really all, within spec and within the abilities of the materials and so on and so on. And I have to say, I'm also just gotten more and more careful about selecting suppliers. Like the first belt grinders I made with sort of no-name inverters, and that was not a good choice. I mean, I'm only with Hitachi now because I just find that this is, for example, for the belt grinders, this is the only part that can really fail me out on the customer side. The motor won't die. If wheels die or something, then you replace them, you ship them out. They just put the new wheel on and there they go. Anything else you can, but whenever electric's involved, things get complicated because you can't just require any customer to be like, yeah, I'm going to order a new inverter and program it myself. And, then I will not get an electric stroke during doing it. And a lot of ifs there. So
Sounds fun.
if an inverter dies, it's a problem, for example, and that's why I really need to make sure that these things are reliable. So far that has worked, but I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. Nothing is flawless, so at some point it might happen, and then I will have to figure something out.
No, I mean, very interesting insights, because I was pretty sure that you made up your head around that before. How much more expensive in comparison, like percentage-wise, not a concrete price, are the Hitachi ones compared to the no-name ones?
I think the no-names are just completely overpriced anyway, because someone puts a brand on them and calls them German, but then they aren't. So, I don't know, percentage-wise, maybe 30-40%. But then you also get a really nice software that allows you to just, hook them up to the computer, and you just download the program instead of having to type it in on the panel of the thing. So it comes with a lot of side benefits anyway, and that saves time and that saves money somewhere else again. Or
that makes complete sense.
Or it saves, like if I had to program every machine myself, all the parameters, it would drive me crazy, and it would only be a matter of time until I make a mistake. All these things, like you said it earlier on, make it reliable or make it reproducible.
No, makes sense. Cool. I expected that answer, but I thought it was an interesting question, because I thought that's such an important issue, because in the if realm, because you don't know if anything will happen ever.
Yeah.
You only know until it happens.
But yeah, I mean, it's probably the biggest headache about, making machines. When you make your knives, I mean, there's really not really a danger of someone suing you or something, or, some safety issue bouncing back on you. I mean, if someone cuts themselves, yeah, it's generally accepted that you can cut yourself with a knife, and that's not something you need to advertise or protect people from.
American market.
When you sell a rolling mill and that thing eats your arm, then you have to justify why it ate this person's arm, and justify that you did everything you could to avoid that. And that's a big responsibility.
Which you've had to go through with all your machines. They're all CE certified, right? That's quite a process.
They have to be. I mean, at least legally, everything has to be CE certified in the EU, every machine. So
what does that involve? You have to write the documentation, right?
It means, right. For one hand, it means that you assess the risk of a machine according to like there is a code, like a legal code that defines the security of machines, the Maschinenrichtlinie it's called. And then there are some other more documents, and you have to report or document, or you have to document that your machine complies with all these standards that are basically have the status of a law. And in order to do that, you also have to supply documents like a risk assessment. You have to do like an operator's manual. You have to, if your risk assessment determines that there are risks, you have to document how you dealt with them. Have you tried to minimize them as much as possible? Because every machine will have residual risks. So you cannot make a belt grinder in a way that it's still A, usable, and B, no one can grind skin off their finger, for example. This is just not possible. So what you have to do is you have to tell people about these risks. Like you have to have an operator's manual that says, okay, don't grind your finger. And this is the way the machine is supposed to be used. And this is the way the machine is not supposed to be used. And then you put stickers on the machine and you say, yeah, this is the residual risk was still advertised on the machine, for example. And yeah, there's just a bunch of things, and you go through that ideally with an expert that gives their opinion about the topic, because it's not always so clear. The interpretation of a law is something lawyers do, and the interpretation of those things is something also experts do if it gets more complicated.
How much work was it for, let's say, the belt grinder?
It was probably a week of work at least to get everything straight and read through all the documents. Norms are also not for free. Like if you want to comply to a norm, you have to obtain it.
Does somebody come and check that out after you've got all the documentation written the way that you think is correct?
No one does that. So a CE is usually something that's self-proclaimed. You can create something today, some contraption that kills everybody, and then You can put a CE on it and it's there. You can advertise that, but then if something happens, they will come and see, did this person make a CE that's actually justifiable, and is it reasonable to claim that this machine has a CE? And I mean, I don't want to say any names, but there are definitely belt grinders on the market in Europe that claim to have CE, but they just really don't, because it's plain to see that there is no thought put in anything, And then there are machines that probably deserve it more so, and they don't have it, which is also illegal. So it's funny.
Do you think we are overdoing it here in Austria and Europe with the bureaucracy around those things, or do you feel it's justified and it's all right? Or what's your opinion as someone who actually builds those machines?
I think it's a really hard, a really difficult terrain to navigate. It's also difficult because the same rules apply for little craftsmen, or like people like me that supply little craftsmen, and the same rules apply for robotics cells of a car manufacturer, where you have maybe completely unskilled employees that walk around and get wiped away by a robotic arm if something doesn't work.
Yeah.
You get the idea? If I tell each of you guys, don't grind away your finger, you're like, okay, yeah, sure, I will not grind away my finger. But then if you deal with big companies, there are different measures to be put on those products, because you really don't know who will be the end user. So I think in some regard, yes, it's justified on, like, in the machine industry.
Yeah.
And I think it does honestly prevent a lot of severe or tragic accidents.
Yeah.
I used to work, or I still am, a contractor for like industrial corporation that is kind of like a special machine and robotics company that's affiliated to a chain manufacturer, and they make really cool machines, cool welding machines, and all sorts of metal processing things. And I still work. I work there full time, and now I'm still a contractor in some projects. And of course, they have very different, that's much more high tech than what I do. And when people consider safety there, they sit together, they have like a big meeting for 4 hours, and then they have that again after a month. And then, that's just a much bigger assessment in general. And I think it's definitely has a value there, a much more important value. Whereas I think for people like me, might sound selfish now. Yeah, for people like me, it's probably, it's getting it harder, because if you want to do it properly as a one-man show, you still have to go through the same processes, but you don't have, the backup of all your colleagues and a special department devoted to that stuff.
I think that's the perfect answer, but in a way, it's my conclusion as well. I mean, for some, somehow I would wish for some differentiation between small companies like us and the robotic arms wiping away employees left and right. Yeah, I like that image very. But then I'm also seeing, and not I don't want to bash the American makers, but then I see American makers, they burn their shops down left and right because they work out of wooden sheds with no rules, it seems, at all. That would never fly in Austria. I mean, you would run into trouble so quickly if you do that, if you try that, with neighbors and, filing complaints with authorities and all that. In America, it seems to work. And that's the, a very different system over there, it seems like, to us, very unbureaucratic. That's not perfect either, because they are burning down their shops left and right. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm torn as well. On the one hand, I think it makes sense to have that bureaucratic, heavy approach because it entails some safety standards. But then, sometimes it's a little a bit much.
Two extremes there, Ben. So maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. Right?
Definitely is, but I mean, what bothered me most, what's kind of a little story I always tell is when I learned that, how do you say it, the law or the government tells me as a self-employed person how much light, how much windows I have to have, how much percentage of the floor area I have to have direct windows to the outside. And I'm thinking, okay, if I don't have employees and I want to work in a wet cellar by my own in the dark, that's none of your business. So that's things where I'm saying,
You had to do that for the Betriebsanlagengenehmigung, I suppose, right?
yeah.
Or for what?
But still, it's. I mean, I get it for an employee, but even there is the argument the employee has the choice. He doesn't need to work with me.
That's right, but the Betriebsanlagengenehmigung, that's where it gets tricky, because the Betriebsanlagengenehmigung is a property of the building and the shop, right? And it doesn't really matter whether or not you have employees, right? So it's attached to the building.
Yeah, for sure, but in regards to the business.
You have a Betriebsanlagengenehmigung for a special kind of business.
Yeah.
Whether you are alone or you have 100 employees doesn't really matter for that.
No, but I'm saying even if I have employees, they have the choice. I mean, if I'm hiring with an employer who is just bad, I'm not going
that's
there.
That's what you meant. Okay,
yeah,
so people can decide whether or not they want to work with you, even if you don't have any windows.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
Okay.
I mean, truly, I can't hide it. If I'm employing someone and he starts working with me, I mean, there's still a choice. It's difficult. I mean, I get both arguments. Don't get me wrong. I'm not siding with either one of the sides, but definitely. But it's a difficult issue.
I know, but the Windows issue is to protect workers and employees, and that kind of makes sense usually, because they don't only apply to you, but they also apply to big factories. And of course, you can always say people have a choice, but sometimes they don't, right? Sometimes they need the money. Sometimes they have to keep their job or whatever. They can't.
I know.
Leave. So it's not that easy. So
the question of differentiation there, because Canon is not the same as a sweatshop with 2,000 people that are underpaid. He has only one underpaid person there.
I mean, I totally agree with your point that there should be a difference between for all these regulations, basically, between big companies and factories and whatever, and small 1 person or 2 person forges and whatever small shops, right? So there should be the law should make a difference, and it should make it easier for small shops to get their shop running. And those
issues go deep, really, because if you think about the data security, how do you say that? Datenschutzgrund. Yeah. If you think about that was something they, as far as I know, they wanted to do for big companies mainly as well, but really it really impacts small companies because they are overwhelmed with the bureaucracy again. The differentiation.
I agree, because it makes it hard for small companies, and then like 1 person shows to get their things up and running. I mean, that's the situation we are in. We have to find a shop with a Betriebsanlagengenehmigung for a forge with 5 power hammers, and we're only 2 self-employed people working there. So it should be easier. I agree.
Yeah. Keith, what's the English word for Betriebsanlagengenehmigung?
I have no idea.
They don't know that.
They don't have a word for that because it doesn't exist. Yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
No, but I think that's kind of like why we have unions and stuff to take care of all that kind of stuff and make the rules companies need to follow or should follow. Then again, that's not everybody has a union or needs to be in the union. So it's still kind of, I don't know. It's not the same thing.
It's an operating facility permit, Google says. That makes sense. Yeah, I don't know if it's called like that in English, but I don't know if they have such a thing in reality. Yeah, tough.
What do you guys think? Is that a show?
Yes, but you have to read the Patreons, Keith. Or don't we do that?
You want me to read them out? We can, yeah. We got a new one, too.
Ah, cool, yeah.
I mean, besides Tobin's going to join after this one, but we got Christoph Stiegler from Conjuring Knives, Sven from Njord Artisan. We got Johan Fagerlund from Fagerlund Bladesmith, Travis Haynes from Bird Forge, Roy Rutten. Ben, you want to do this next guy?
Chez d'Argent.
Yeah, there we go. Paul Belletta from Belletta Handmade, Coy Baker from Baker Forge and Tool, Pin Von Delft from Von Delft Woods, Alex Greenaway from Trenton Knives, Cardoso Knives, and the new Patreon is Bob Workman from the Shoe Shed. So thanks everybody for supporting the podcast. If somebody wants to help us and pay €1 per month to keep the show going, you can find us on Patreon at WFI Europe Podcast. And we want to thank Oliver for joining us tonight. If you guys haven't seen his machines or you want to learn some more, go check out his website. He's got really good videos, like I said, and detailed information about each of his products, and you can actually read the user manuals, which helps to see pictures and stuff. At least I need that. See the pictures while you're reading it. Don't grind your finger off.
Don't grind your finger off, yeah. And don't draw them out in the mill if you get one.
Yeah.
If you get your hands on one, then make sure you get your hands on the right spot.
And make sure to make a video.
Okay, it's enough puns now. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Yep.
All right, we will talk to you guys next week.
Servus.
Bye.
All right.